As soon as I start seeing stuff, I'll let you know. Okay, go ahead and talk for me.
Hey,
Go ahead and talk for me.
hey,
We're good on Twitch.
hey.
And we're good on YouTube, so we're going to go live in 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome to Retro Reprise, episode 12. Joining me, like always, is the badass Bill Benton. And
Thank you.
today we're going to be talking a lot about just sort of kind of the way life has been going. Today we're going to be talking a lot about last generation consoles. And to start off with, we're going to go over any kind of pickups that we had this week. So I'm going to let Bill kick that off. Let's go over your pickups. What did you get over the past week since we met up last time?
All right, so since last Wednesday, I usually go to the thrift shop at least once or twice, maybe 3 different stores a day. They're on my way home, so a lot of times after work I'll go. Sometimes even before work I'll even go if the work's not too late. But this week I've only been able to find a few games though. Anything's worth really picking up. A few non-related game stuff. The Salvation Army was having 10 cents DVD days. They just had way too many DVDs, so I want to get rid of them all for 10 cents. So I got Kung Fu Hustle, really funny, good film. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I've been wanting to get it for a while. I got season 2 of Venture Brothers. Venture Brothers is probably my second favorite Adult Swim show of all time. Really love like the whole. I grew up as a big Johnny Quest fan, so therefore, I really enjoyed the art style, and this is kind of loosely based on that. So, and
Hey,
last but not
the
least,
new season of Venture Brothers is coming out soon.
nice. And for $2, I picked up a DVD of Deadpool on Blu-ray because, well, I just don't have it. And for video games, I did find some video games though. They had $2. They were kind of mixed in the Blu-ray bin, so I got a little lucky on them. I got a sealed copy of Cartoon Network Battle Crashers. I almost opened this up and want to play because I do like some of these characters on here, like Rigby and Mordecai and Finn and Jake and those people. But I checked out the gameplay before I opened it, so I'm really not. I think I'll just probably flip it because I really don't think I'll probably get into it. I was kind of hoping it was like Cartoon Network and like in a Smash atmosphere. And last but not least, so I picked up Uncharted Thieves End. I still got to play through 3. Once I finish 3 out, I will play it. I do enjoy the games, though. It's just sometimes after I get done beating one, I want to take like a break from it, play another game, beat that, then go back to the other one. So I have the Nathan Drake collection that I bought. It's just I got to finish 3, and then I can play this one. So looking forward to that, though. But for $2, I'm not going to pass it up, man. So what did you get, Adam?
Well, I went to my local game exchange because that's where I go these days. And, man, I considered it a really good deal. But I got Subterranea for Sega Genesis, which I've been wanting to play for a long time, which is kind of a shooter, but but you're not just going like vertical or horizontal. It's just all over the place. And then I got sorry, I'm trying to follow everything else here. So, and I got BioShock 2 and BioShock Infinite. So I got 4 games for about $20. And so that got me to thinking about sort of the last generation consoles. All these were for all the BioShock games that I got were for the Xbox 360. I just recently picked up Fallout 3 since we had been talking about Fallout quite a bit. I thought I might as well pick up a Fallout game so I could get into it and just know what's going on.
I'm so proud of you for doing that. This will literally like change your life, man. Okay, I mean it's a life changer. You'll never walk away as the same person again.
And then the other thing that I ended up doing was, I got to thinking about the last generation consoles and how cheap these are going. And I think we're in what I call sort of the price valley of last generation games. So if you're out there and you're wondering like, Oh, I want to get into like retro gaming, or I want to start game collecting. Where do I start off with? Well, a lot of people still have their old 360s or PS3s or Wii's, or even the Wii U. Even though I don't put the Wii U in that category just yet. I think I think with the Wii U, because it was such a limited, because they didn't make as many Wii U's and Wii U games, I think we're going to start seeing a price increase on those a little bit quicker than we are with the PS3, Xbox 360, and even the Wii, because those systems had a lot more popularity. There's a lot more games available. You can grab, at this point in time, you can grab a bunch of 360 games or PS3 games for pennies on the dollar of what they were going for. But I think at this point, I think we're reaching that deep valley where you can get really good games at this point in time for the last generation consoles and pick them up really cheap. What have you noticed in your area as far as like 360 PS3 prices?
I mean, they're pretty decent though. Most Goodwills around here charge $2.39 for video games. Doesn't matter if it's a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 2 game. The one thing I'm noticing a lot though is basically a lot of the AAA titles I can get at thrift stores for $2.39. Pretty good stuff that came out. A lot of good Call of Duties. I actually am not a huge fan of Call of Duty Online, but I'm a big fan of certain Call of Duty single player campaigns. I think they're well done, well written. As far as like the best place to probably get them right now for a good price is still GameStop. I know a lot of people hate GameStop, but they have probably one of the best selections. And the PlayStation 3 probably has a rich library of role-playing games right now. And now those are the ones that are always going to hold value, the hard-to-find RPG games. I mean, just for the pure fact that a lot of them went under the radar. A lot of them just people get, sometimes even the market was saturated some months when certain role-playing games come out. It's like very few people, whenever they collect, games, they hardly ever just get like the role-playing games that that were just under the radar until like people say, oh, this is now a hidden gem, this is a great role-playing game, kind of like Ni no Kuni. You remember when Ni no Kuni first came out?
I'm not I'm not familiar enough. Yeah, I'm not an RPG guy, so I don't know enough about them to especially like if it's outside of like Final Fantasy, I'm not gonna know much about it.
Gotcha. I mean, this is a game that looks absolutely beautiful. The only one thing that kind of holds it down for most hardcore gamers or even people our age right now is it's very much like a kid's story, but it's very well written. It's basically it's like watching like a highly detailed anime movie, but with kids. It starts off with like you're in the real world, like the real world that we're living in, but then there's like another way to get to the other world. And you have this like little friend that kind of helps you get to the other world where there's like another version of you in that world. And the story's interesting enough, but the thing, I can see a lot of people reviewing it. A lot of people I know nowadays review games, probably play it for 5 hours and say like, oh, okay, this game's for kids, whatever, Truth be told, as an adult and as a friend that likes RPG games, this game is very rich, tells a great story, and it just has a great environment too. And the story gets a lot better as it goes on though, So, and that was one that went under the radar until lo and behold, Mel Jesus does his Hidden Gems videos, lets everybody else know about it, and nowadays everybody gets it. And the thing is though, the sequel just came out not that long ago. And I think if Mel Jesus didn't put out that video of Hidden Gems, I don't really think there would have been a sequel because most people were like, okay, there wasn't a whole lot of buzz around it. It's one of those games still you can pick up pretty cheap right now.
Yeah, and and that's what I'm discovering. So I'm gonna go kind of like I need to make a list of like 360 games that I haven't picked up that I just need to like get into some of the more popular titles. I mean, I've got all the Arkham series, and now I have all the BioShock series, which I haven't even cracked open yet because I've been playing Fallout 3. So that's kind of there right now is like the perfect time, especially if you're someone who's just kind of wanting to get into retro gaming, or maybe you're a little bit younger and you grew up with the 360 and the PS3. And you're like, oh, I see these guys with, game collections behind them, like and it's this massive collection. How do I get started in that, or how do I get into that, or how do I do that without spending a lot of money? Right now, the best way to do that would definitely be to start off with your old system. So if you have upgraded to the current gen consoles, even the consoles themselves are getting pretty reasonably priced for, you know, around $100 or so. You can pick up last gen's console. So, you know, it's one of those things that it's definitely worth looking into. And I think that, like I said, we're in the valley right now. We're in a point in time where there's plenty of consoles to pick up. There's plenty of games to pick up, and most of these stores are trying to get rid of whatever stock they have. Like, I like going over to my local game exchange because they've always kind of treated me right, and I always talk with the staff and have a good rapport with that store. But they have like massive deals, like, you know, buy 2 games under like $7.95 and get the third game free. Well, that's kind of how I did this. Like, I think BioShock 2 was like $4.95. So it was just like when I bought that, I got the other, you know, I got that game free because all the others were so cheap. So we're looking at like single digit, you know, dollar amount now for these games. So it's actually a really good time to pick them up.
Oh yeah, and here's the thing though, it's like, as hardcore gamers as we are, we're gonna go through a whole generation and play games that we never touched, you know. One series I would like to play though would be on the Xbox 360. It's got to be the Mass Effect series.
Yeah, that's another series I haven't even touched yet, and that might be one that I'll go pick up and just get a bundle of all the Mass Effect games. And I mean, you're, like I said, with them being so cheap, you can get the entire collection of games. So Mass Effect 1 through 3, and have them all, and probably not even spend $15 to get them.
You know, exactly. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and there's a lot of good genres. Like I remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking about beat 'em ups and how that genre hasn't really, you know, been around for a long time. And I realized something too. It's like Dragon's Crown came out for the PlayStation 3, and it's made by Atlas and Sega. And in fact, they even have some like a little bit of Golden Axe things. So there's a few levels where you can actually ride beasts like dragons and saber-tooth tigers, and basically attack people. And it's a great RPG kind of beat 'em up is what it is. Basically, you join the Adventurers Guild, and there's like this big story about a kingdom and this thing called the Dragon's Crown. It's supposed to control dragons, whatever. And it's a fun game. It's not so much like an RPG where you got to grind it by all means. You level up just by going around these little dungeons, hack and slash. In fact, it's not you the whole time. You can save people. Well, actually, you save bones. You take them to church, have them resurrected, and then it can join your party. And then you can have this little party. You can pick and choose who you want. If you want like a sorceress or an archer or a dwarf or something, and you can just pick your party as you go. And it's a lot of fun, man.
Do you know if that came out for the 360 as well? Or is that just a Sony exclusive?
I don't know. It's a great game though for sure. You'd have to look that one up though. If it does, I'd highly recommend picking it up. And that one right now is really cheap. I just bought one. I bought my copy, I say a few months ago, and I bought it at the DVD. I bought it at a family video rental shop for $9.99.
Okay. And what's the game called again for everybody who might be interested?
Oh, Dragon's Crown.
Dragon's Crown. All right. Well, keep an eye out for that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know enough. Here's the thing. Like, I still buy most of my stuff is still like Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, even Atari stuff. So I haven't kept up with last generation very well. So do you have any like highly recommended 360 PS3 era games that you think would be worth picking up?
I don't know. Most of the ones have. All right, let me see here. As far as a great shooter is concerned, but I don't think your servers are online anymore. I always appreciated Rainbow Six, the Vegas series, Vegas 1 and 2. I always thought they were really good. Had really good campaign modes. It was one of the first titles that launched with the whole kind of like, it was really the best first-person shooter online at the time. Certain other ones I really appreciated playing though. Overlord was a really fun kind of just game. It's like it was lighthearted kind of evil game, like a dark comedy kind of almost. I really enjoyed that one. A lot of time I played a lot of AAA titles. I played all my Assassin's Creed on Xbox 360. I played all the BioShocks on 360. Um, you know, as far as hidden gems, oh, one of my favorite tactical RPGs for like a long time. I just tactical RPGs are like one of my favorite genres to play out there, and there's really not a whole lot to choose from on the Xbox 360. There's a game called Spectral Force 3. It's very cheap right now. You should definitely go out and try to get yourself a copy. It's like a 3D version of like most tactical games, but this is really fun. It's got a whole lot of dynamics to it. It's got I can go on and on about Spectral Force 3. I've never beaten it. I have come close, and it's one of those games where the campaign mode has a good learning curve. Right now, I'm towards the end, and when you're towards the end, it doesn't pull any punches. It's going to get hard, but once you do beat it, you're going to feel good about it.
Cool. Yeah, I think the Deadpool game came out for the last generation, so I want to pick that up. A game that I've really enjoyed. I haven't played it in a little bit, but I remember when I picked it up because I got it brand new, sealed for like $20. Was Transformers Destruction. Have you seen that one?
Mm-mm.
So
what was that one about?
So it's they did it as the Gen 1 Transformers. And it's cell shaded like the cartoon show, so it looks like you're playing the actual cartoon from the '80s Transformers, and it's a basic beat 'em up, like sort of an action platformer, but it's mostly just sort of a beat 'em up where you can transform into your vehicle and smash into characters and then pop up and beat on them for a while. But really just a fun game, and I really like it just because of the art style. They nailed down to me what Transformers was from my childhood, and they put it in a game, and it makes total sense.
Another hidden gem, I was just kind of racking my brain about it, though, is there's a series that came out called Call of Juarez. And ever since Gun came out, I've been a huge, open world Western games. I've always liked them. Obviously, Red Dead Redemption, probably the greatest example of that of all time. But there's this game called Call of Juarez, and it was like a split story kind of game. On one hand, you play a preacher who used to be an ex-gunslinger, but now he has to go back to his gunslinging days to try to hunt down somebody. Now, on the other end, you play as a Native American that gets framed for a crime, and you're trying to find, a way to prove your innocence. Well, the crazy thing is, though, the gunslinger side of you is pursuing the Native American kid, so basically you play one campaign mission as one of the other campaign missions too. What I really liked about, now I don't know if this feature's been around, but it's one of the first features I noticed where the right trigger will shoot the right gun and the left trigger will shoot the left gun. So you can kind of shoot them simultaneously or whatever kind of rhythm you got. The preacher is really weird. This is like the only time I've ever seen this as a weapon in the game is you can put a Bible in one of your hands, and so when you hit the Bible button, like the trigger for the Bible, he'll start saying Bible verses while shooting people with the other hand. And what that does is basically it's supposed to stun your enemy for a little bit so you can shoot them. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
It was kind of cool, and I really love the game, but I have an unnecessary grudge against the second release. Because when the second release came out, I was so looking forward to it. I went out, I bought the game, and I put it in my Xbox 360, and I'm just kind of sitting there, And for a long time, it was a new game, and it took forever to load it. It was like, oh, there's something wrong, It just took forever to load. And then I heard this sputtering sound from my Xbox 360. I heard this loud pop, and then I got the Ring of Death.
Oh no!
And I never got to play it, and I just was just so upset because I was like, oh, this sucks, dude, really? And so I just, out of anger, I won't play the second one, which, I should really get over that stupid thing. I should play the second one. I imagine they probably improved on the mechanics of the first one. So I do want to check it out. But Call of Juarez, first one was excellent. I have not played the second one. I will play the second one, though. Might as well pick up a copy while they're cheap.
Well, I'm glad you brought the Red Ring of Death up because that is one of the things when you're looking for these old consoles, because on occasion, there's our Dallas Retro group that's here will do they'll like take over a store or a place for a little while. And one of the stores that's really close nearby me, they'll do like sort of a flash sale day. And they did one last year, and this guy had stacks. I mean, just stacks of Xbox 360s. He's selling them for $20 a piece. The thing is that you almost have to know, like, you need to do a little bit of research so you know how long ago that system was made. Because if you get one of the early on systems, you could run into the red ring of death. So, like, my Xbox 360 is an S. So I know that there's less of a chance of getting the red ring on that one. PS3 also seemed to have a bad issue with overheating as well. So that's one that I'd like to do a little bit more research on and see if I could find an affordable PS3 that isn't going to burn out, because I had a roommate who had a PS3 that just Skyrim killed it.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's weird though. It's like that generation too was like when we first started noticing like system failures right away. Because that red ring of death happened to me like less than probably 4 months I owned it.
Now, did you get the 360 when it first came out?
I got my 360 back in I want to say like October 2006. I want to say it was.
Okay, so it was still kind of early on.
Yeah, the only reason why I bought it because I wanted to get Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter when it came out, and that was the game that and Fight Night Round 3 was also another game I wanted to pick up.
Yeah, with especially with the early generations, chances are you're probably going to run into a red ring. I know or at least with the 360s, I don't remember, the failure rate was like 80%. It was something ridiculously high. And they really didn't. I mean, they kind of got it corrected through the original like Xbox shell, but they really like finalized it when they came out with the S, when they came out with the smaller systems.
And another thing too about that though is when that red ring of death happened, that was the third time. I mean, first time I was upset. Second time I wasn't too upset because Microsoft, I sent it away and they fixed it. But the 360, the reason why I really stopped playing it for a long time after I got PlayStation 3 for Christmas one year. I didn't even ask for it. They just said, "Oh, you don't have one. You like video games? Here's PlayStation 3." Is not because I was anti PlayStation 3. Usually, most of the times, I can't afford to buy games for two different consoles. You know what I mean? Oh
yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, so I'm sitting here, just playing the Xbox all the time, and then after the third one, that's when I really got into PlayStation 3, and I've been happy with PlayStation 3. Really, I mean, I've left my PlayStation 3 on over the weekend, drove out of town, came back on Sunday, and it still worked. Left it on the whole time.
Well, see, that's where my roommate ran into his. So by the time that we got Skyrim, playing on it, it had failed out. I had been living in that place for 3 years. He had already had that PlayStation 3 die, PlayStation 3 died twice. Had to send it into Sony to get fixed 2 times. Got it back. We had gone to QuakeCon. We got all hyped up for Skyrim. Got Skyrim in. We were both playing it quite a bit. 4-hour plus sessions, each on Skyrim or whatever. And then it just died. And that was like the third and final time. He just kind of caved after that and ended up getting got the R2 Special Edition Xbox with the Star Wars Kinect.
Yeah, I remember that too. It's a good looking console, but at the same time, it's like, I haven't, as far as like consoles longevity, I think it's a safe bet nowadays. If you're going to pick up Xbox 360, try to get like the newest model. Obviously there is, you don't really want to get a first version of them, but if you're collecting though. But the second, probably most important thing though, other than the console, is definitely the games though. And, What games do you feel like you missed out on getting?
Well, I was going through because Xbox Live is still open and working for 360 right now, and they're having some really good digital download sales. I've been thinking about picking up the Castlevania Lords of Shadow series. So I've got Lords of Shadow 1 because I got that one really cheap, but Lords of Shadow 2 you can do digital, and then they also have the Mirror of Fate, which was like the 3DS version, but they like made it in HD. Like I think it's called like Mirror of Fate HD or something like that, where they just sort of upgraded the graphics for like the home consoles. So I'm thinking about those. I know I want to get Deadpool. I'm still kind of iffy on Mass Effect. I don't know if I'd really dig that game or not. My big thing is that I'm not really super into first-person shooters, so that kind of limits. Like I'm not into RPGs all that much, just because I don't have the time to play them. Like they're just so involved. Even though I am playing Fallout 3 right now, but it is very involved. I'm thinking about picking up New Vegas, but I don't know how much I would dig that because I think it's, it was like Bethesda, like released it, but I think Obsidian actually ended up making Fallout New Vegas. I'll have to see how much I'm liking Fallout 3. I'm not that far into it, so I don't know if I'm gonna really be into the Fallout series or not right now. Because to me, at this point in time, not being like cruel or mean about it, it does just sort of look like Oblivion with guns, because it's definitely on the Oblivion engine. So, because as soon as you like start talking to somebody, that camera zoom right on their face just happens. So I'm kind of interested in maybe picking up New Vegas. Thing is, these are cheap enough that I can just probably pick them up, and if I don't like them, then it's kind of like a no harm, no foul. But I'm trying to think of like some really big series that I'd like to pick up, because I already have Oblivion, I already have Skyrim, which were the two big ones that I wanted to have. And like I said, I'm just kind of now getting into Fallout, so I've been mostly playing Bethesda stuff. But I don't know. I'm still kind of, like I said, I don't know the 360 library enough to go, oh, these are the games that I definitely need to have. But the ones I'm thinking about are pretty much the Castlevania games, and I got the BioShock games, and that was something I was kind of interested in because I thought the concept was really interesting.
Oh yeah. There was a lot of fun games though. It's when Xbox 360 came out, I was playing that ridiculous amounts of time though. We're always running games for the system too, because I never really was. I'm still not a really big fan of checking out $60 for a new game. To me, there's got to be a $60 all around value with it. If I can beat the game within a week, that doesn't mean I got my $60 worth. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of fun, simple games that came out for it. One of the first games that came out for it that I really loved was kind of off the wall. Well, it's not really off the wall, but it's a lot of fun, hard to find out, is The Unit. And it's this little military game. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty good. You can't go wrong with like most titles. Like there's not a ton of shovelware for the Xbox 360,
Now,
as long as you stay away from like anything to do with like dance games or Connect games, there's not a lot of shovelware. That's what creates shovelware more than anything. When a game's just running off a gimmick, then it's shovelware. That's what killed the Wii U. There's like 100 bowling games for it, and truth be told, the best bowling game for it came packed with the system. So just most of them are pretty good though. I really do. I mean, I had a lot of fun playing this system out, and I should really dig it out and play it again right now.
Now did Dark Souls, was it, there's Dark Souls and then there's like another series, but Dark Souls is like the really hard one, right?
Oh yeah.
So Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2, have you played those? Do you recommend those at all?
I do recommend them. Yeah, I do have them. They're tough. Oh, they're tough and almost unfair, but not entirely unfair. It makes you go about beating the game a certain way. You can't rush in. It's not like a beat 'em up style where you rush in, throw your best combos or whatever, and try to win. No, you really got to think your way through this game. You know, it is unrelenting, and it starts off very simple, and and all games should start off simple. But you're going to find yourself in situations. How do I get myself out of here? Or how do I get past this person? Or like, there's no way I can kill this freaking thing. It's a thinking man's adventure game like that. Where Skyrim, you can level up, you can get good magic, just like you could with this game. But this one really makes you think how you're gonna have to take your opponents out.
And I've been also thinking about Dragon's Dogma as well. Have you played that one?
That one's it's kind of iffy. I mean, it was made by Capcom. It was published by Capcom. I want to say. I don't know who made Dragon's Dogma. I mean, it's not bad. I kind of want to get it for the PlayStation 4 for the HD remake kind of version. But if I might get the little cheaper version, because right now, if I was to play like an action RPG game like that, open world, I heard Deliverance right now on PlayStation 4 is like very underrated. Probably one of the best games to come out this year. They say it's like a Skyrim killer. It's doing really good. So I just really want to test that one out. So Dragon's Dogma, I'll probably pick up the PlayStation 3 version and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's one of the, and that's the other thing is like, so I'm picking up, like Fallout 3, and I'm thinking about picking up New Vegas, Dragon's Dogma. All of these games are like, eat your time, giant, huge RPGs, or I'll say like more American style RPGs. I'm not into JRPGs all that much. So I guess I need to clarify my RPG, thing a little bit. But, yeah, I've been thinking about grabbing those, and if they're cheap enough, I'll pick them up. I'm also trying to keep an eye out for some decent fighters. I've got Street Fighter 4. Pardon me, I've been drinking too much crackberry already. It's my latest brew. So I'm trying to keep an eye out for some decent fighters. So I have Street Fighter 4 or Ultra Street Fighter 4 for the 360, and I don't know if I like it or not. I like my Street Fighters in 2D, so I haven't quite. I don't know. It feels different from say like Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 3, where it's a different system altogether. To me like Street Fighter 4 feels real sluggish. So I don't know if I'm into it or not.
A very good series 2D fighter is very underrated. It's actually starting to gain momentum nowadays. There's a series called Blaze Blue. I believe there's a few of them that were released for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. Beautiful hand-drawn anime style, beautiful backgrounds as well. They're kind of the over-the-top fighters, very much like Guilty Gear. If you ever played any of the Guilty Gear fighting games,
yeah, I've got several of the Guilty Gear games.
Yeah, if you're a fan of that, especially air combos, this is a must pick up. And the cool thing is, so cheap right now, like under $10 cheap.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep an eye out for Blaze Blue then. Yeah, because I remember hearing about Blaze Blue, but I haven't really like looked into that series. I have Guilty Gear X2 and X3. I can't remember. Or it just might be Guilty Gear X and Guilty Gear X2. I think Xrd is the third one. That's the one that came out for this current generation, which looks amazing. As far as like it's a 3D game. Have you seen that one where it's just like they mastered what like 3D modeling looks like? Did I lose you? I think we lost Bill again. Let's see. He's in the chat, so he should see. Yeah, he's cut off. All right, we're going to dial Bill back in here. Give us just a moment. The benefits of going live. Here we go. Well, there's me. I don't see Bill. I don't know if you guys want to see any of the behind the scenes. We're going to go over this so I can get Bill back up here. Oh, it's ringing.
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, he's coming back. There he is.
There.
Bill is back. Let me get us back into the screen here. There we go. Oh, I got to resize you here. It took you completely out. So give me just a second.
Oh, you're fine.
There we go. Do you have the volume up on your laptop?
Yeah, here.
Yeah, you might want to
Turn it
mute.
down for you.
You might want to mute that. There we go. We're back. Wonderful, wonderful world of live streaming. You look a lot better, though.
So,
you look a lot better. The image is a lot cleaner this time around.
Sweet. That's good, man. That's good. So, what was I talking about last? About Capcom games.
Yeah. Fighting games on the last generation.
Yeah, fighting games. Going back to like other Capcom games, other than fighting or just what they're known for, great series I love playing on that was Lost Planet series. Have you ever played Lost Planet series?
No. Is that on the PlayStation? Is that PlayStation 3?
I believe it came out on Xbox 360. There's Lost Planet 1, 2, and 3. I think maybe 2 and 3 came out on the PlayStation 3. But the first one's a lot of fun. First one, it's kind of a weird concept because you got to find stuff to kind of keep yourself warm the whole time. But it's a really nice kind of open world, kind of just big boss battles. It's really fun. It's a lot of good time.
Okay. I'll keep that one in mind. I'm trying to think of what other like really big. What was one of the big games early on in the 360? Do you remember?
I remember other than like Oblivion. I remember Two Worlds being kind of a big deal. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not familiar with Two Worlds. What's that one about?
It's very similar to like Oblivion.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll definitely check it out then. Because I'm a huge... I don't know. I'm just a huge like Elder Scrolls fan. So that's why I'm giving like Fallout 3 that big chance. Because oddly enough, when I picked it up, I was like, oh, I'll see what other people said about it, and I see like so many videos trashing Fallout 3 about like not having like player selection or anything like that. And I can tell you from just like the few hours that I've put into it, which I haven't done a whole lot, but there's lots of different ways to play Fallout 3. Like, you can be like most of my path that I'm taking, because I'm playing like right now. I usually, the way I do like Bethesda games is I'll play as a hero first, and then I'll do like a second playthrough kind of as a villain, just to kind of see what the choices are, like how the choices have changed things. And so far, I've been able to play the game with like a high speech level, some lockpick, and some like hacking skills. And I've managed to get through a lot of the game without having to like kill a bunch of people, or like I've been able to like parlay deals and like have towns work with other towns so far and stuff like that. So I think there's probably a lot more variety to it. I don't think people are giving like Fallout 3 the credit, and that might be a little ignorant on my part. Like I said, I'm only like a few hours into the game.
Exactly, too. I always thought the speech part was kind of different because there's like difference, and that's gives it the high replay value for games like that. It's like different outcomes. But the problem is though, with games that big, it's going to take a long, long time to do all the different paths and join certain factions and whatnot. So you can replay it again. It's just you really got to be in the mood sometimes to replay it again, though.
Oh yeah, that's one of those games. It's kind of like, I went through two playthroughs on Oblivion and on Skyrim. And on Skyrim, I played more as sort of like a villain character afterwards, and kind of got bored halfway through because it is a lot of fetch quests. Go get this thing or go get this item, and after a while, it like that's just kind of the nature of those games. So you're gonna wear out on them after a while, but like I said, right now, so far, the criticism that I've seen against Fallout 3 has been, I don't know, it's like they want to steer you towards a certain way of playing, but you don't have to play that way. If you just want to go up and shoot some NPC in the head, you can do that and take their stuff, and there your quests are done with. You can just move on with the next thing if you want to, unless you want to play through the storyline. And even then, it still gives you the option to be even a little bit more violent or confrontational, or to kind of solve things in a peaceful way. So to me, it seems like there's a lot of options when playing the game. You can decide which way you want to go and play it.
Oh yeah, but other than that, though, there's a lot of other games like that have replay value, though. There's, as far as like PlayStation, we talked a lot about PlayStation. Xbox 360. Let's dive in a little bit more about PlayStation 3. Hidden gems are just basically one of the best things I always liked about PlayStation 3 is just basically their library of just games they have on tap, especially a lot of free stuff on there. You ever play DC Universe Online?
No, I never got to play that one.
That is probably one of the best things out there. When I really wasn't really playing PlayStation 3 a whole lot, I had a few games I'd play, but if you want like a good open world kind of fun game, and it's free too. That's what I liked about it. You could play DC Universe Online, and I've really got addicted to that though. You gotta make your own superhero. What's his? You give him his old attributes. Can he fly? Does he have super speed? And stuff like that. And it's amazing. And then you can upgrade the gear for him. You fly around Gotham. You fly around all kinds of different areas. And you go on these missions though, and it's free and it's out there for Sony. And that's what I love about Sony. They have a lot of great free games out there.
Now, are the servers for that still up? Do you know?
As far as I know, they are. I played it. Last time I played was back in the winter, and so yeah, it's been over 6 months ago. I want to say, but I want to say it's still online. It's the same reason. Like I think Sony gets a lot of great free games. Like as far as like Fortnite, I think they were one of the first ones to have Fortnite available on the console, and they got also Warframe right now for the PlayStation 4. They just got a lot of great free stuff out there. As far as like value, I really like the PlayStation.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to add to it is like Sony usually gets, or they have a lot of really great exclusive games too, like really good exclusive games that you really think of when you think of Sony, like God of War and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But it's just you buy a console because you want to get the most bang for your buck. A lot of times, if there's going to be certain games for it, then you're stuck with your choice of getting this and that. I've never been a huge Halo fan. I like the series. I've never really been a huge Gears of War fan. I both like the series. I think they're good, but most of the time, I just really, I stick with games I think are going to be good. As far as like system nowadays, though, is like I wish. As far as like you see these games being cheap right now, like I heavily advise everybody to go to their game store and then decide, get a lot of these games that you're not going to be able to find in the future. Don't go for AAA titles. Those are always going to be around in thrift stores, for years to come. Everybody and their grandmother bought these games, but buy the hidden gems, buy what everybody else, says should have got more attention. A lot of times games get released around the worst time possible, So with that being said, though, I really advise everybody just go out there and spend $50 on a bunch of games versus, maybe 50 or 60 on a new release, and you will have yourself a decent collection of probably solid titles that you're going to have just fun to play with throughout the year.
Well, and that brings us to the next topic. We got about 15 minutes left. And I wanted to get into this. I've been talking to you about this for 2 or 3 weeks now. This is a topic that I've been wanting to cover, but we haven't had a chance to, just with technical difficulties and life and all that good stuff. But a topic that I've been wanting to touch on is collecting for this last generation, or is this last generation, I'll say, is it retro? So I remember struggling with this years ago when somebody said that they collect retro games and they collected for the PlayStation 2. And this was right when PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 hit. And I was like, that's not retro, man. That was last year that console was the console to collect for or to play with. So it's, this new generation just come in and somebody was like, oh yeah, I collect retro games. I collect PlayStation 2. And I don't know if they were doing it as a joke, but I remember having that struggle, well, PlayStation 2's not retro. And when people think of retro, they usually think about the 8-bit time frame, maybe the 16-bit time frame. And we're definitely into the point in time now where 32-bit, N64, Dreamcast, and even PlayStation 2 now, for sure, those are definitely retro consoles if you're collecting for them. But would you consider this just current last generation with the 360, PS3, Wii, maybe even Wii U, would you consider that retro?
To me, retro, a lot of times it goes to, I like to use a football analogy here. Usually you can't qualify for the Hall of Fame until you've been out of the NFL for 5 years, okay? So let's say I'm a player, then I decide to go on, I'm going to become a coach, right, 2 years later. Then I have to stop as a coach, wait another 5 years before you go in the Hall of Fame, okay? So I kind of use that as a production run, though. The PlayStation 2, the reason why most people kind of hard to say it's a retro console, that thing was alive for so long, okay? I mean, PlayStation 2 was around for, I think they stopped making games literally because they didn't want to support the PlayStation 2, the Play 3, and the 4. I believe 2012 was the last year they actually made, it was a soccer game too. That was the last
year it was like a FIFA game or something. It was like FIFA 2013 or something.
Yeah. And I usually say 5 years after they stop making a game, that's to me, that's a half a decade. In a half a decade, you're going to think to yourself, wow, man, life was different 5 years ago, I mean, 5 years ago, what were you doing, And nowadays, I mean, 5 years ago is a legitimate way to say, hey, back in the day, we did it that way, So a lot of times you can kind of look back with those nostalgic glasses, and say to yourself, yeah, 5 years, that was a long time. So yeah, I would consider the PlayStation 2 retro. I don't know when they stopped making Xbox 360 games, though. But I know they didn't hold on to it that much longer after the Xbox One was released. So
yeah, the Xbox One came out. I actually bought I don't remember the day specifically, but I remember when I bought my Xbox 360 at my game exchange. The day I bought it, then I get into the car, my phone chimes, I pull up my news my news feed comes up on my just sort of open screen. As soon as I got in the car and sat down, I look in and CNN's got a broadcast Microsoft as of today has stopped producing Xbox 360s. So I got my Xbox 360 the day Microsoft decided to stop making them.
And if it's been more than 5 years, I would say, it's a retro. A lot of people, and what's going to make it retro for a lot of people, like you said before, is the kids that grew up with it. The kids that had their coming of age, when they played that thing when they were a kid, they played it when they were in middle school, they played it when they were in high school, and then they played it when they were in college. Now they're an adult, they're out on their own, they're making their own money. They kind of want to play the stuff they grew up on, so right now is the perfect time to buy those games for that system, whether it's still cheap,
Well, the way I've been, so when I was sort of put up with that PlayStation 2 conundrum, I was thinking about it, and I decided, well, in the world of fashion, they talk about stuff being retro, or like in furniture, there's retro furniture. And so there was a couple of like different definitions. So one was something could be retro even though it was brand new. So in that example, we'll just say this: when I was a kid, I had a Ghostbusters T-shirt. But you could run out to Target now and get like this relic printed out, like looks like it's old but it's not, Ghostbusters T-shirt. Yeah. In the fashion world, that T-shirt is considered retro because it's got like this symbol that was really created in the 80s that's tied to an 80s movie, that it's considered retro at that point in time. But if somebody were to find my old T-shirt as a kid and buy that shirt, then that shirt would be vintage.
So I like that.
they have a different measure of what retro and what vintage is. And I almost kind of like that idea a little bit. But we also have stuff like that. So like with Shovel Knight's still I wouldn't call it a new game, but it's still new-ish. Or even Bloodstained. Bloodstained's a good example of this. So where Bloodstained is a retro game, even though it's not an old game, it's just done in the old style. So it's in fashion terms, that would be a retro type game, but it's definitely not a vintage game. A vintage game would be like the original Castlevania for the NES.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess nowadays, like you said, you got to distinguish the two from each other.
Well, and that's something that's really difficult to do because as even as sort of a game community, we've not sat down and like said, here's the hard and fast rules of this is retro, this is vintage. This is like we could add a whole new category of vintage. So that could be your Atari, your Fairchilds, your ColecoVisions and televisions. That could be like vintage. And Nintendo could be retro. But I guess what I'm getting to with this is that I don't hold the last generation in. I wasn't playing those games and those consoles when they came out. So I was still playing on Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. So for me, those are always going to be the retro consoles. And I think for the main popular audience who may not even be into retro gaming all that much, when they think retro, I think they're definitely thinking of like Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Genesis thrown in there. But I mean, for us, we know a little bit more, like the Sega Master System, TurboGrafx 16, there's more in-depth stuff that we could get into. But I don't know if I would hold the last generation at retro just yet. I'm still kind of up in the air about it.
I would probably say it's on the brink of being retro. I think the reason why, because all of our stuff, retro got so big over like the last 10 years. The reason why we're seeing retro style games, like you said too, is because we had a community who love that system. So as long as the generation, like I said before, that grew up with Xbox 360 as a kid and PlayStation 3 and so on from there, if they have that same love and that same memories when they get to our age, that's going to be like the distinctive version of that. Like they never had like Nintendo or Genesis or Super Nintendo. They had the PlayStation 3, and to them, they think it's probably one of the greatest systems. It's kind of how we feel like the Super Nintendo is probably one of the greatest systems ever.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're like, when you think about the first of all, the lifespan of the last console generation was ridiculously long. It was like close to 10 years. If not at 10 years, it was close to 10 years, which is almost double the amount of what a normal console cycle would be. So like if you take a look at, like, for example, let's use the Nintendo. When the NES came out in 85, really until about 89 when the Sega Genesis came out, it had 4 years of a good life. But it was a 4-year console cycle. And then we got into our 16-bit era. 16-bit era really didn't last too long if you really think about it before we got into 32-bit. So we're looking about like 4 to 5 to 6 years between console cycles, and this last one was such a huge gap. There are so many people that had a hard time. I think there was a part of the population that had a hard time grasping what our current console generation is, because they had been with that old console generation. Like, if you were 8 years old when the Xbox 360 came out, you were 18 by the time it ended. You were like through that, took you through like a little bit of grade school, through junior high, through high school, and into college a little bit. And now it's time to change consoles. If you could you imagine like having a one console your like most of your childhood that you would remember?
You know, and that's the thing too. And I really do like the fact that, you know, console generations are lasting longer, because I really don't like putting out $400, $500, or $300, regardless how much the new systems will cost. I don't like doing that every 4 years or 5 years, you know. I mean, it's not the fact that I can't afford one. It's the fact that for me to get a new system, I have to justify it, though. But as far as, like you said, you know, just going through that whole timeline with the console, it's a lot different. Like you said, you know, we had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, you know, and probably the same time frame as some of these kids probably had just the one system.
Oh, yeah. No. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But the thing is, though, I still think, you know, we had more variety, but there was a lot of things were different back then. There was so much competition. Atari, like in 95, there's like, let me see, 3DO, Atari, Philips CDI, how many versions of friggin' Sega, you know, the Sega CD, Genesis, Game Gear, 32X, and so on from there. There was just so much to choose from. The whole market was friggin' saturated, you know, as far as like stuff to choose from. I think that's the reason why we remember so many different consoles, where in the 21st century gaming, it's really streamlined. Okay, Microsoft makes this, Nintendo makes that, Sony makes this, as far as like the big three. And, you know, as a person who does appreciate, you know, different consoles and different companies for their input, though, kids these days, they grow up that way, you know. It's I remember the South Park episode when it's loosely based off Game of Thrones. It's like a two-part episode when the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 were going to launch. There were like all the kids in town were separated on two battles, because everybody wanted to play this, you know, on the same system, you know, as far as like internet connection and whatnot. And there was like Team PlayStation 4 versus Team Xbox One, and then I had this like huge battle of it. In fact, even the Stick of Truth is pretty much based on that. You know, it was like a precursor to Stick of Truth. And that's kind of how it is, though. It's, you know, kids these days, like, we grew up with college co-op. Nowadays, everything's online with their friends. You know, they can play across town with them anytime they want. Even after they go to bed, they can probably go get online, play with their buddy, and then go to school the next day, talk about how many people they shot on, you know, Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever, you know. That's how it is for them, you know.
Well, yeah, and when we had our discussion about where consoles are going to go next, you know, Fortnite is that great example, whereas you now have Fortnite for everything. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your computer, you can get it on whatever console that you own. It's there. And that's one of the things that we've seen, I think, from this last generation, and especially in the current generation, is that we're seeing, I don't want to say more homogenous. I don't want to sound negative about it. Just dropped my vape. But there is this sort of third-party games will pretty much release for almost every system. So you almost have to look at the exclusives, or, you know, you may have to look at like tech specs to really like lay down what's going to be the console that you decide to go with. But believe it or not, man, we hit our hour already.
All right.
But well, let's do some final thoughts, man. What are your final thoughts on the past generation, games to look out for, retro or not?
It's very simple. Find what genre you're into. Find out if you're first-person shooter, role player, whatever. Go online, find yourself hidden gems for that system, for those genres. Get them now. And like I said before, get the hard to find stuff. There's always going to be playing God of Wars out there. There's going to be playing Call of Duties. There's not going to be a whole lot of Nino Kunis or anything like that, though. So definitely pick those up.
And for me, my final, as I get a frog in my throat right when I talk, my final thoughts are, yeah, right now, the time to pick up last generation console games is really now. We are in the price valley. You'll get handfuls of games for real cheap. This is what we did. This is what I did when I initially started collecting back in the 90s, was that Nintendo was super cheap. You were picking up 20 games for like $10. So we are at that time frame now for the PS3, Xbox 360, and the Wii. So if there's any games out there that you've been looking for or been thinking about getting, now is probably the time to get them, because we're going to see those within the next 3 to 5 years. We're going to see those prices start to pick up some more as more Metal Jesus videos come out about more hidden gems. Those prices will go up some more. Not to knock Metal Jesus, I like him, but yeah, whenever he does a video, stuff blows up.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for having me again.
Well,
see you next week.
Thanks for being on, guys. Thanks for dealing with our technical stuff. It's going to be like that for a little while until we get everything hammered out. But thanks for joining us. You can catch Bill on YouTube. Do you have any videos coming out soon?
Nothing yet. Like I said, just been making Street Fighter videos. That's it.
And I don't have, other than trying to get the podcast stuff up and running smoothly, which I'm still working on. I'm working on getting some like different camera gear, maybe doing some vlog videos. But you can always catch me here at Retro Reprise. You can catch Bill on YouTube at Bill Benton. And guys, make sure you like and subscribe. And chat's always open, so whenever you guys catch us, hang out in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
See you guys.